Hello everybody and welcome to the Experian Marketing Services and Experian Hitwise Speak My Language, a guide to audience-centric content development. Today on the 17th of November. Today's session will be hosted by myself, Craig Heaven. I'm an Enterprise Client Development Manager here at Hitwise, been here for about 8 years, and also my colleague John Fetto. I'll let John introduce himself.
Hey, good afternoon. My name's John Fetto. I'm also with Experian, and I'm a senior research marketing analyst, and I've been with the company about 13 years.
Excellent. So you've got two experienced Hitwises today. So just a few housekeeping things to kick things off. We'll definitely get a link to the recording over to everybody, and we'll also get a view of all the slides as well. If you want to ask any questions, please feel free to use the chat function, or you can tweet us with the Twitter handle KnowAndReach. Let's get into it. Okay, so today's agenda is going to cover 4 key areas, looking around sort of the areas of content. Firstly, we're going to look at traditional content, and then move on to the language of search and the importance of speaking the language of the consumer. We'll then talk about the ways to generate content and messaging, specifically for key audience personnels, and we'll wrap up with some suggestions on tailoring content messaging by channel. Now, just to give you a bit of background to Experian Hitwise for some people who may not know it, and to give you a bit of context to quite a lot of the insight that we've put together today. I just want to mention that sort of a lot of this insight comes from our Hitwise online intelligence tool. This provides insights into consumers' online behaviour, including visits, click streams, so the upstream and downstream websites, looking at the time spent, and devices as well. So most importantly, what Hitwise can provide is search activity, and that's going to drive a lot of the insights that we've developed today. So in each market where Hitwise is available, it's the largest panel of online consumers, and in the UK we have a panel size around sort of 3 million users, all secure users, and that represents around sort of a 60% PC to 40% mobile. So the size of the panel is obviously critical, and this means that we have a lot of really deep search data and can help our clients mine this and understand these consumer interests, these intents and actual motivations as to sort of what people are searching on. Within the UK, for example, what we can track on a monthly basis, we're looking at around 8.8 million sites, and that also is over about 160 million searches on a monthly basis. So what that gives us is a lot of those new searches that people are searching on, and also just gives us that depth. We've seen that increase by about 180% in terms of our search depth with the introduction of our 3 million panelists. So that's definitely sort of given us the ability to mine into the long tail and really understand sort of how people are searching online for key products and services. I'll now pass you over to John, who's going to take you through the traditional content.
Thanks, Craig. So let's just jump in and look at some of the examples, starting with the traditional content topic. Traditional content, that's what most of us would identify as just content, meaning articles and blogs and videos and what have you. And marketers, we rely on those traditional media normally to develop content, and then we would just consider sponsoring or advertising on it. But obviously, increasingly, we're developing our own content, which allows us to choose the topic and control it in a way in which we can weave our brand messages and suddenly promote products and services. Here on the screen, what you see is just a screen capture from Knorr.co.uk. Obviously, Knorr is a food ingredient company, but they're not just in the ingredient business. So in order to drive usage and purchase of their bouillon soups, seasonings, and what else, they really need to promote cooking and that lifestyle. And recipes and meal inspirations are a really great way to do that. A key way to develop the content that consumers will find most relevant is just to look at their online behaviors. For example, we're heading into the holiday season now, and we just looked at some of the top recipe searches through our Hitwise tool last week and found that Christmas cake is the #1 searched recipe right now. But we can also look at the different recipes that are trending. So, for instance, onion bhaji recipe searches are more than double this year what they were a year ago. Likewise, lentil soup recipe is almost 3 times higher than it was a year ago. So understanding not just what people are searching for, but also the trends and the foods that consumers want to make and eat are going to help sites like Knorr and yours to create content that's going to be more engaging and audience-centric to your audience. So, on another topic, we see, it's referencing hairstyles specifically. One company that's done this really well, I think, is Unilever. They own Dove, Suave, Tresemme, Clear. The company actually was recently awarded a Hubby Award for Best Branded Content for their All Things Digital YouTube channel. And that channel, it features celebrity or leading vloggers rather, who give styling tips. One of the keys to their success, though, is that they are actually using search data to find out the hairstyles that consumers are looking for in order to drive that content creation. So as soon as activity starts to heat up or searches start to be conducted around a particular style, the company can quickly commission a video to attract consumers interested in that content. And that's exactly the kind of things that our clients use our monthly search terms from Hitwise to accomplish. And using an actual example from one of our clients, this is a client in the food space, or in the pet space rather, and they wanted to better understand what pet lovers were looking for online. So we did an analysis of all the types of things that pet lovers were looking for, and there are lots of different topics. But one of the threads that we started to discover was that there was this trend of people doing searches around pet consumption of human foods. And on that last slide, you could see just some of the top variations that we saw. Can dogs eat pork? Can dogs eat nuts? Can they eat almonds? Can they eat peanuts and pineapple? So we started to put those together. And then what we did was we looked and we identified a few different common foods that we saw repeatedly coming up. But not only that, we also looked at the success rates. So when people were conducting searches for these types of food, how successful were they clicking through to content? For instance, people are often searching for, can my dog eat chocolate, right? That's a common question that people have, and they're easily finding content around that because there's no shortage of information on pet consumption of chocolate. But what we noticed is that there were a few key food areas where there was kind of lower than average success rate, which meant for us, we went back to the client and we identified those as opportunity areas for them to go back and create content that they could host on their website. So around, the topic, the foods, garlic, avocado, and then a variety of nuts, since those were very popular, but people were not necessarily finding the content online that they were looking for. So they went back and they generated all this content for their site, and and it also helps them to attract new visitors and introduce them to their brand. So this is just a key way that you can leverage search to generate traditional content that you own and host on your site. So now we're going to move on to search language. So knowing not just the specific terms and keywords that consumers are searching for is really important. But it's not just those general topics like we were talking about earlier. It's actually the very specific words that they're using. So this next slide, I found this cartoon. I think it illustrates the point pretty well, focusing on the details in search when we're generating content. Obviously, you need to make sure that you're speaking the same language as your consumer, not only taking into consideration all the ways that you can spell the important keywords for your category, but also the different ways that consumers are looking for information. And in your hosts today, you have an American sitting in Canada and an Aussie sitting in London. So we're pretty well qualified to understand the different ways that that people are speaking and searching for things online across a variety of different countries. In fact, when we were preparing for this webinar, Craig was telling me of a story that he personally had recently about rental cars. I think you want to share that with them, Craig.
Yeah, definitely. So one of my travel clients was looking at sort of international expansion and was wanting to understand how they can take their sort of car hire business overseas. And when we looked at sort of the terms car hire within Hitwise, we were seeing quite low volumes. So in the UK, when people are searching around sort of car hire, we're seeing around sort of 7,000 variations of that search term. When we look at it within our US tool, we saw around 350. So immediately I'm starting to go, what's happening within the data? But then when we start to look at it as a variation of rental car, then the UK we're seeing sort of around 2,800 variations, but we're seeing 22,000 variations on the term rental car in the States. So it's a really sort of it's a nuanced part, and for the most part you would know this for some of the key sort of search keywords that you're focusing on. But for some of that longer tail terms and for anything such as your international expansion, but also thinking from within the UK, that those large expat communities that are present, that's always a great sort of way to start to focus in on some niche areas that you can start to get a competitive advantage over the opposition.
Right, and obviously aligning your search terms with the way that consumers are speaking is important, but also then you'd have to take those insights back to your website to start to organize your web content and architecture to to match the same ways that people are commonly searching for things, and that will obviously help with your organic search performance. So one example that we kind of put together here, and this is just a kind of a seasonal example we thought would be relevant heading into the holidays. And we did this kind of pulling data from our new audience view platform. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at how people price-conscious consumers were conducting searches to get kind of discounts or deals and what have you. And so we looked at obviously the different ways that people could be searching, and what we found is that the most common word that people in the UK are using to find discounts is the word deal, quote unquote deal. When it comes to following deal rather, it's voucher and discount, and then coupon is obviously a term much more commonly used in North America, but it still shows up as significant enough in terms of online search activity in the UK. But beyond that, we were actually, this is where using our audience view tool comes in handy, is we can go in and now we can look at how different audiences are searching, price-conscious consumers are searching. So we created an audience of men versus women, and we wanted to see how each of those audiences are using those 4 most common keywords. And while 53% of people overall using those deal-seeking terms are female, it's actually an interesting finding that men actually make up the majority of those searching for deals. So 54% of people conducting a search with the word deal in the variation are male versus 53% of all people conducting those searches. So we also see that given that gender split overall among price-conscious consumers, the term coupon does relatively well among men. So for instance, but men only make up 41% of those people conducting searches for vouchers and discounts. And that means that consumers typing in deal are 8% more likely to be male and 14% more likely than all deal seekers to be male, whereas those people seeking price-conscious men would do better to kind of use keywords like deal, as well as offer searches for things like coupons and sprinkled with some vouchers. So the next slide, what we wanted to do also is kind of take a look at some of the specific search terms, go into more detail, and find out a little bit more specifically how men and women are seeking deals. Searches for coupon code, for instance, account for an 18% greater share of coupon-related searches made for men than they do for women. Interestingly, it's not the same. The same isn't true for discount code or voucher code. In fact, discount code searches are more commonly made by women, whereas we said that coupon code searches are more commonly made by men. Also, for coupon and voucher searches among men, they are commonly focused on restaurants, especially pizza and delivery services like Just Eat. Those obviously have a higher concentration of searches being conducted by men. As we said before, Deal searches in general skew towards men, using that keyword deal, but those focused on electronics and gadgets, like we see here, Xbox One deal, are especially likely to be conducted by men. And then, interestingly, the word deal, those searches that rather contain the word deal, they comprise a 51% greater share of searches made by men than those made by women. Men are also likely to be looking for things like online vouchers as opposed to printable ones, which is a good segue to our next slide, which shows how women are searching for discounts online. And here we see some of those. Unlike men, as we just mentioned, women are more likely to be searching for those printable vouchers. So they're going to be going online, finding a voucher, and then printing it off and taking it into a store. Searches for travel deals like hotels, breaks, and spas also make up a greater share of deal searches made by women. And searches for store-specific coupons like Tesco coupon comprise a greater share of searches made by women in the UK, whereas men are more likely to be looking for product-specific searches, as we mentioned before, like those technology and gadget searches. So understanding not only the lexicon and the words that price-conscious consumers are using, but also understanding how those different price-sensitive audiences search for deals are going to help marketers align the most appropriate keywords and products in their offers. So that wraps up this section. I'm going to hand it over to Craig to talk about how we can generate content focused on different personas.
Thanks, John. It's always interesting when we start to look at sort of search conducted by either men or women and that type of view. So the way that we looked at that type of search around sort of the various deal elements, it's important to consider that there's other key audiences when generating this content. We don't want to just start to create one-size-fits-all approaches, and we really want to start to look at sort of how we can differentiate and create these individual personas, these individual segments, to start to give you a really rich picture to sort of that online behaviour of those core audiences. These can be either those that you've identified from your sales data, or looking at sort of a lot of your own sort of first-party data, but it can also be sort of from a retention viewpoint as well. So there's a couple of different ways that you can leverage this type of persona type in segmentation. In this example, what we did, we were wanting to sort of help one of our leading publishers who was trying to understand a particular subsegment of women who are new mums or mums of young children that are also quite digital savvy and can quite engage when it comes to online. Now, this is traditionally a project undertaking from our research team that we work to deliver and scope this type of project. Now what we can do within that new audience view platform that John mentioned before, we can start to build this out quite quickly and within minutes start to understand what these segments have to offer. So in this example for our client, what we were able to do was to understand and look at sort of key mosaic groups that have core elements of women being mums, and we're then able to sort of go a little bit more granular and involve their online behaviour to isolate those people as mums. So using the mosaic information and the online behaviour, so they've visited the likes of NetMums, Mumsnet, etc., has given us the ability to start to drill into this and understand who these personas are. So in our first example here, we can start to use the overall general interests that they have. So where are they spending their time online? What are those sites that they're looking at? In this example, we've looked at this from an overall sort of vertical view. So starting to understand out of all these industries that these digitally savvy mums are visiting, we're able to then sort of look at that versus the online population. So straight away we can see how this is indexed against that online population and see the likes of search engines getting a quite substantial proportion of that traffic, and that's showing that they're quite inquisitive. They're seeking more information, and if not more than the likes of the entertainment type area, which is another higher proportion but is under indexed in terms of sort of what we're seeing there. there's a high proportion of traffic and time that they're spending in department stores, so they're wanting to buy more traffic and buy more products for their kids, and that's given us a great sort of view in terms of sort of from a content perspective. You know, using the likes of product reviews, using your best lists for a kid. We're going to see lots of top products of 2015 coming out over the next 6 to 8 weeks, which is going to be quite interesting. We also start to see that they're quite health conscious. That's quite, you know, with an over-indexation of 118 there. So what we can start to look around this is start to see sort of, you know, health benefits of exercising with your baby. So we can start to look at sort of some content ideas around that. Also the likes of options and the fact that, you know, kids are growing. You've got to get rid of all those different sort of products for when the kid has grown out of those baby grows and all the different sort of rockers that they have and the like. But we're also seeing that they're quite sort of active and well-rounded. So we're seeing sort of that lifestyle segment you know, well over-indexed as well. So we need to think about sort of organizational tips and you know, 5 ways to save time in your day. So there's a lot of information that you can get from just understanding where they're spending their time online. To go one step further, we'd recommend like really understanding sort of the actual search activity that they're undertaking. So in this exercise, we were able to really isolate those search terms that these people, these digitally savvy mums were doing, and start to help define those interests. So we're seeing quite a lot of information around sort of weather reports and train times were quite a common search focus. So you need to start to think about how you can help the mums stay on schedule with time-saving tips and look at sort of activities for the weekend. A core element of what we were seeing within these digitally savvy mums were the fact that they were seeing, you know, quite a lot of soaps and sort of TV news were quite popular. So we saw Strictly Come Dancing, I'm a Celebrity, EastEnders, Hollyoaks were quite sort of popular. And you know, related to this, you know, a number of generic terms around sort of celebrity news and gossip. So this celebrity focus, you know, helps attract those interests among connected mums, and also the lifestyle pieces around sort of how their favourite celebrities are spending time with their families, their favourite recipes, books. That would really connect with the thirst for information that these celebrity sort of obsessed mums have. And we also saw the likes of you know, searches around the childhood themes and products as well. So the likes of Peppa Pig, Frozen, Moshi Monsters, and My Little Pony as well coming through there as well. So which is always quite interesting when we're seeing sort of that type of granular information. So using that time that they spend on and the verticals that they have a focus on, and getting into that granular focus around the actual search activity gives you quite a rich picture as to sort of how you can start to tailor content specifically to those to reach those particular mothers. So finally, the last sort of view that we're going to provide is around sort of channel preference. Now, you know, we're wrapping up here with channel preference, but I want to emphasize that, you know, the channel shouldn't be an afterthought. It's important to consider at the beginning of your content development planning efforts because the delivery channel is quite influential in the types of content that you can deliver. So in this example, we had a travel client who was really quite particular in terms of sort of trying to target millennials and trying to target millennial travelers and understand sort of, you know, who these people are. So our first exercise was to help them understand that, was to understand who these people are. So they were quite urban in terms of sort of where they're living. They were single or with very young families and quite diverse across the overall sort of segment. They like to sort of visit the likes of lifestyle sites. You know, they'll had an effect with movie theatre ads, and we're really quite savvy with social apps. So some of the messaging that we wanted to sort of help them with to engage with these millennials is that they always want to stay connected while they're away. They're quite eco-conscious, and you know, they really like their gourmet dining and the hottest nightlife around was what was resonating with them. So based on this, you know, now we know that sort of millennials are heavily dependent on mobile devices, and we know the right messages We just need to use this when we're communicating the specific channels and what we should be using when we're looking at that. So in this instance, what we're able to see is that they had a high propensity to visit the likes of gaming sites, blogs, multimedia, so YouTube, social networking and forums, Facebook and the like, but they were less likely to visit sort of, email sort of services, TV sites, and search as a result within that. So using both the messaging that we understand and also sort of the channels that resonate quite well with them, we're able to sort of think about sort of how we can then try to reach these travel millennials. So here we've just provided sort of a bit of a mock-up of an autoplay video ad within Facebook that might appeal to this audience, taking in consideration pretty much everything that we've just outlined. That it's quite centered around sort of eco-friendly destinations. It could easily be sort of an infographic, a 5-tip, for planning a memorable holiday, etc. But what we're actually sort of starting to think about is, it's targeted to this audience, and it needs to work well on those mobile devices. So using the social channel, making it sort of eco-friendly in the messaging, video format, because we know it's multimedia. That's going to sort of look to really resonate with those travel millennials.
So yeah, sorry. Well, so now we'll just wrap up and just provide you with 4 kind of key takeaways from what we talked about today. First being just focus on selling your products or services and not your content. And the best way to do that is to find out what your audience is interested in and deliver the content that incorporates your brand message. Then we take that back to that first example of what pet foods people are searching for. Secondly, understanding how your consumers speak about your products and services is really important, and you can then tailor your search campaigns and your website to take advantage of that lexicon so that it optimizes performance as well as the customer experience. Next, we can say those high-definition profiles, like the mums one that we talked about, provide deep understanding of those consumer motivations, lifestyles, interests, and intents. Helps marketers to generate content and messaging for their key audience segments rather than focusing on a one-size-fits-all approach. And finally, knowing the preferred channels and devices of your target audience and optimize the content to be consumed on that device. Obviously, if it's mobile, you need to understand the types of content that's best consumed on that, whereas traditional media can be a totally different type of content that can be developed to reach that audience. So that pretty much wraps up our webinar. I don't know, let's see where we are in terms of time. If we have time for a question or if we have any questions that came in, turn it back to Craig.
Yeah, well, we haven't had any questions from the team just yet out there. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat functionality now. I've got a question for you there, John. In terms of sort of defining that mum segment and understanding sort of what they're doing online and sort of the types of searches that they're undertaking. Yeah, what's the best way to define those types of segments? Say, at perhaps a key seasonal time of year.
I mean, yeah, with our audience platform, Craig, as you know, we can take all of those. We can take things from Mosaic and define that segment, whether if it's more of a demographic-oriented segment, or even looking at what people are searching for. I know right now we're working on a webinar for North America, and we're defining people who are searching for gluten-free recipes. So anything that people are engaging in online, any combination of their Mosaic profiles, we can use to kind of create that audience segment. Going from very general, like young moms, to very, very granular, like people who are searching for gluten-free products online. So I think hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't think we have any sort of direct questions regarding to webinar. We've had a few around sort of very specific questions in terms of sort of some of the Hitwise service. So what we'll do is we'll get back to those individual customers there. Now, what I will just say is that sort of in terms of sort of questions, please feel free to send them through to marketing.services@uk.experian.com, or we've got our number there as well if you have any direct queries. Always send them through to your key account manager as well, and the services team. And lastly, thank you for taking some time out of your day just to listen to us around the Speak My Language webinar. Hopefully, it's given you a few key points to be able to understand as to sort of how you can apply this. And any questions that you have, especially off the back of this, the team will put you in touch with both John and myself.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.